Hey everyone, welcome to today's webinar. We're going to be talking about secrets of B2B content marketing success with influencers. I'm Hannah Abaza, VP Marketing of Uberflip, for those of you that don't know me. And today I have Lee Odden with me, CEO of Top Rank Marketing and bonafide influencer as far as I'm concerned. How's it going, Lee?
It's going great, Hannah. It's good to be here.
Awesome. So I just want to we've got a bunch of stragglers that are still logging in. So I just want to give people 30 more seconds to get logged in, get set up. In the meantime, I would love to actually hear where everybody is dialing in from. So on the chat box on the side there, let us know where you're coming from, where you are. Rachel is in Minneapolis. I know I'm in Toronto, and it's actually pretty cold here today. And Lee, you said you're in San Francisco?
I am. I'm actually broadcasting live from Tracker Central. So I thought, how meta would it be to be performing this webinar at influencer marketing platform about influencer marketing? So
Fantastic. Yeah, and there's actually a couple of people from San Francisco. Jordan, he's dialing in from San Francisco. We've got Portland, New York, Minneapolis, Michigan, Vancouver, Albuquerque, Greenland. Some international representation here. That's great. Love to see where you guys are all coming in from. That's fantastic. All right, it looks like still got a few stragglers coming in, but we're already at 3 minutes past the hour, so we want to get things started. Now, before I kick you guys over to Lee, and you guys are in for a major treat today, by the way. I got a sneak peek at the slides. They're fantastic. The content is going to be awesome. You're going to walk away here knowing every secret you wanted to know about influencer marketing. But as I said before we do that, a couple of housekeeping items. So number one, we will definitely be sending the recording as always. So keep an eye in your inbox over the next couple of days, and I promise the recording will land there, as well as the slides from the webinar. If you do have questions, we will definitely be taking questions at the end of the webinar, so throw them into the chat box. I'll be flagging them as we go along, and we'll circle back on those questions so that we can pick Lee's brain a little bit towards the end. And also make sure that you follow along on Twitter. We'll be using hashtag #UberWebinar. I know we've got a couple of people from our team on there. Lee and I will be checking Twitter definitely after the webinar. Probably hard to do it during the webinar. But if you hear something that is mind-blowing, you see an amazing slide, grab a screenshot of it, tweet it, hashtag #UberWebinar. You can also mention at Lee Odden, at Uberflip, and we can connect with you guys that way. And last but certainly not least, make sure you stick around for a demo. Part of what we're talking about today is definitely influencer marketing, and part of it is around content as well, which Lee has a lot of expertise in. So stick around, and I'll actually show you how Uberflip can help with your content marketing strategy. So after the questions, if you've got a few minutes, hang out, and I will give you the down low on what's happening there. And without further ado, I'm going to pass over the controls here to Lee. So Lee, you can get things going on your end in just a moment.
okay, and you can let me know if there we go.
Yeah, we're good. To go? Perfect.
We are good to go. Awesome. Well, thanks, Hannah. It's awesome to be here. Obviously, I'm a big fan, and I'm really looking forward to digging into this topic. Besides, who doesn't want to find out secrets, right? It's kind of it's very tempting. It's very intriguing. So, I, as you mentioned, I'm the CEO of an agency called Top Rank Marketing, co-founded with Susan Michukanis, and we are probably 60-40 or 70-30 B2B to B2C, very focused on content, and we publish a fairly well-read blog at toprankblog.com, and very active in the B2B industry. And we get to work with some really awesome clients. We get to do a little bit of content marketing for content marketing companies, influencer marketing for an influencer marketing platform, which is Tracker, as you see there, and other really cool B2B companies. So out of that experience, I'm going to share some things that that we've learned. While I am the CEO of our company, I'm still a marketing practitioner. I love to experiment, and we're fortunate enough to have a sizable enough community and a popular enough blog that I get to throw digital spaghetti against the wall to see what sticks on a pretty regular basis. And use those findings and share them with our team, our clients, and with the good people listening in on this webinar today. So here's my agenda. Gonna go through a lot of information. Lucky there's going to be a recording. You can get it, whatever you missed later. But I'm gonna talk a little bit about the state of content, some challenges, what the opportunity is specific to influencer marketing, and then a model that, that we've used in marketing in general, but it also has implications for influencer marketing, attract, engage, convert. Some secrets, of course, which is what probably everybody's here for, and I'll finish up with some best and worst practices. And believe me, being on the receiving end and the sending end, some of these are really bad, so make sure you don't do them. Anyway, the state of B2B content. I think everyone's been following Content Marketing Institute and Marketing Prof's annual study, both in the B2B, B2C categories about what's going on in content marketing. 88% of B2B companies say they're employing content marketing tactics, and that creates a lot of optimism. And you see stats like this from Demand Gen Report, which is also another great source of information around content marketing. 82% of senior execs say that content is a significant driver in their buying decisions. And a lot of companies employing content marketing understand this. So, you know, it's a matter of finding out what people want and give it to them. At the same time, you know, there's a bit of chasing of shiny objects happening. You know, a lot of people will, oh, content marketing this, content marketing that, and they'll start doing it and not really have any strategy in place. So you get a little bit of the silliness happening. And also the fact that there's so many options available. In fact, right now, if you go to your phone or you go to your desktop and go to Google and just type in content marketing tactics, you're going to see all 30 of these represented there in that #1 ranking, and you can see how many things there are to pick from. So marketers have an overwhelming number of choices available to them when it comes to content, and that creates some challenges. It's a sort of paradox of choice situation, but so do consumers, so do buyers. Business buyers are confronted with a dizzying array of choices. And I introduce you QB. You know, who's ever heard in terms of data metrics or data quantification of a QB? And of course, we're creating 2.5 quintillion bytes a day. According to IBM, that's 90% of the world's information or data has been created in just the last 2 years, and that's a lot, clearly. At an individual basis, we are consuming an average of 74 gigabytes of media every single day. So it's kind of hard to stand out with that overload of information. And in the content marketing space specifically, CMI Marketing Prof study kind of reveals this, and these challenges are usually the same. They're in different order, but companies that are in the content marketing game are challenged to create a variety of engaging content on a consistent basis. So, and the funny thing is that I think Serious Decisions reported that a very large amount of B2B content isn't even used, and of that content that is used, according to a study from Basumo, most of it is never even seen or shared. So this is a bit alarming because, wow, isn't content marketing the answer to marketing? Well, not if people are ignoring it. So on top of this notion of, wow, there's so much going on, it's so hard to stand out, now we have people employing apps to intentionally block content or media. So 41% is growth in ad blocking over the last year. 64% of people never open emails, B2B emails that they receive. So these are a lot of challenges. And in some ways, companies are trying to react by sort of an egocentric view of content and talking about themselves, so creating their own content hubs and focusing on branded content. But, you know, while there is often utility in that content, it's not always credible because it's coming from the very brand that's trying to sell you, right? It's their best interest to communicate certain information, and people don't trust that as often. What people do trust is they trust experts. There's a study by Nielsen and Empowered that revealed 85% of consumers seek out trusted expert content when considering a purchase. But when they compared that expert content to branded content, there was an 88% lift in brand familiarity, and most importantly, there was a 38% lift in purchase intent with expert content. So why would anyone not include experts or influencers in all of their content. As directed throughout the entire customer journey, by the entire sales process, as reflected in this study from Gartner, it's more and more important for companies that are investing in content to become what I like to say is the best answer, right? A best answer strategy speaks to relevance, it speaks to credibility, and it speaks to being easy to find. And the amazing thing is that when you integrate influencer marketing and influencers in your broader digital strategy, that's exactly what happens. So that's the opportunity. Influencer is and what it isn't. There are a lot of, there's a paradox of choice there too. And so I may not be, or what we have to say at Top Rank might not be the answer, but it's one that we've been able to test over and over and over again. And so the way I look at influencer marketing is that and industry experts that have active networks help achieve measurable business goals. So we're not just talking about the famous people. We're not just talking about people that, are self-proclaimed experts. We're talking about people who are credible and well-known, and there's evidence, i.e. the active networks through which they can communicate, engage, and share. There's lots of stats to support the importance and popularity of this whole trend around incorporating influencers in your marketing. A Nielsen study reports 90% of consumers trust peer recommendations compared to only 33% trusting ads, and I think we can all relate to that. But how about the 6 or almost 7 to 1 return on media value as reported by Burst Media? For every dollar spent, they're getting $6.85 back. I've seen other studies where it's a 9 to 1 return or 13 to 1 return. And so that's created a lot of optimism, right? 75% of professionals consider the influencer marketing or that they're doing as effective for lead generation, and people are putting their money where their mouth is. 59%. And maybe you're one of those people. Maybe you're one of those companies. There are other metrics that speak to the optimism around influencer marketing. It's one of the fastest growing acquisition tactics. It's one of the most cost effective. And according to this study, it's attracting better quality customers. So again, all signs point to, wow, this is something we really need to pay attention to. So in our own case, in terms of our own experimentation, of course, we've been including influencers in our content, especially blog content and ebooks and that sort of thing for many, many years. But when deciding to approach it more strategically, here's sort of a snapshot of our evolution. So we focused initially on one influencer asset, and in this particular one that we did for marketing profs, so attracted over 40,000 views, 400 downloads, 6,000 shares, hundreds of referrals, and we added 20 new prospect influencers, and I'll explain what that means in a moment. How much advertising, how much investment and other marketing tactics would it take to achieve some of those key metrics? And of course, this was our own effort. Another example was where 4 primary influencer assets working together, over 200,000 views, 15,000 shares, 4,000 downloads, over 1,000 leads, and hundreds of referrals. So cumulatively executing content consistently include influencers, 10 projects, over 1 million views, right? 50 plus influencer assets, and we've added over 100 new influencer prospects to our networks, and 50 of those are CMOs and VPs. And the impact on leads and new revenue has been significant, to say the least. So we don't do any advertising, and we don't employ salespeople. So it's a pretty interesting situation, and a lot of that has been facilitated not only for us, but for a lot of the companies that we work with, and maybe even some of the folks listening in today, through the integration of influencer marketing with content. So how do we make this happen? Well, one of the ways is a view of the relationship between customers and information during the buying process. And we segment this into three categories. The notion of what's your target audience, your customer segment that you're after, what are their preferences in terms of information discovery? You know, what do they search on? What social networks do they partake in, or do they spend time on? What do they subscribe to, and who and what are they influenced by? We also take a look at information consumption in terms of their preferences. Do they like consuming content on mobile versus desktop or iPad or all? Do they like long or short form content? Do they like video or graphics or long form text? Do they like white papers or case studies? Right? And what role do influencers play in terms of their preferences for information and media consumption? And then action. What's going to inspire them to take action? What triggers will motivate them to go from one stage to the next, or to initiate an inquiry and become a lead, or even the kinds of actions that inspire advocacy? So by understanding customer preferences with discovery, consumption, and action, we can use those insights to architect content plans that are held accountable through making sure each content asset has a specific and intentional effort will create a great experience through engagement, and how it's going to convert them in one way or another. And as that relates to content accountability, there are specific metrics that are factored in at the planning stage, and of course in the reporting stage. Reach metrics for attraction. We're looking at content consumption metrics from an engagement standpoint, and conversion metrics, which are usually form oriented. You know, they're filling out a form, they're subscribing, they're downloading, they're demoing, signing up, subscribing, that sort of thing. So influencers fall into each of these categories, and as you can see, it's not a standalone thing when it comes to influencers. It's integrated with the rest of what we're doing for content, the rest of what we're doing for marketing. And with an influencer content framework, this is the thing that keeps those actions accountable. So instead of people chasing shiny objects and like, hey, we're a B2B company and no one's on Pinterest, no one's doing Vine, so let's go on and not have the answer why, or not have a process behind that. You follow, it starts with defining goals. Like, why are we doing this? What do we hope to achieve? What does success look like? And then picking the topics, because the specificity of topic is very important, not just in terms of why is your marketing content differentiated from someone else, especially the competition, but when it comes to influencers, it's about identifying how do we want to be known, who is already known for that thing. Let's partner with them and make, and we start to get some of that, we inherit some of that credibility. Of course, there's identification, qualification, and recruitment of those influencers. You actually collect and co-create the content. You inspire those influencers to promote that content. You give them feedback on how they perform. And one of the most important aspects is, of course, maintaining relationships. So this is a cycle of activity. It's influencer marketing is not most effective as a campaign. It's most effective as an always-on relationship, working with those people in and outside of your company that have credibility, that have influence amongst a constituent audience. So now we get to the secrets, right? Now we get to some of the things that you may not be a big part of your influencer marketing strategy or even your content marketing strategy, but maybe they should. So the first secret, so to speak, is that famous is not your only target. There's the thing about this is that everybody is influential about something, right? And if you only go after the most famous people, number one, competition is really high for their attention. I mean, number two, just because they're really well known doesn't mean they can influence action. So it's very important that we look at influence marketing as a recipe, right? When you make something, when you cook something, you're including different ingredients, and it's the cumulative effect. It's the sum that creates the value. It's not the individual pieces. The same thing is true when you're working with different types of influencers. We have brand executives, we have industry experts, we have internal subject matter experts, right? We have other employees who maybe have a great reach and they're up and coming. We have our existing clients. We have industry media, journalists or bloggers. We have marketing partners or industry partners. And then we have that category of influencer that I call a prospect influencer. That is, usually it's a decision maker at a company that you would love to do business with. And so instead of calling on them and trying to sell them something, we identify them as someone who is interested in increasing their own visibility in the industry and finding a way to co-create content with them as an influencer and leading with value first, right? So famous isn't the only objective. Famous isn't the only, I should say, type of influencer you'd want to work with. Another distinction I make in this area of secret, so to speak, is that a brand individual, as I would call them, is someone who's really, really popular. These are professional influencers. But a true influencer is effective at creating popularity. Now think about that for a second. When you're identifying the companies and the individuals to work with and marketing partnerships and influences in play here, are you only going after the people with the broadest reach, or are you finding evidence of how effective they are at actually persuading your common audience? You need both. They're both very important, but doing one, only focusing on one or the other is a sure road to mediocrity, and mediocrity doesn't stand out, as we all know. So a great example of this, of recent examples with our client LinkedIn Marketing Solutions. Jason Miller and his team put together this 108-page tome, The Sophisticated Marketer's Guide to Content Marketing. It's amazing content asset. And if you see on the cover, these aren't famous brand individuals, and they're certainly not stock photos. These are the marketing team at LinkedIn Marketing Solutions. So we have Jason, we have Alex, we have Megan, and we have Sean. And it's really cool that they're surfacing people who are actually doing the things that are being advocated and who represent the very audience this content has been created for. But at the same time, as we look at this tracker listing of our internal list of the most influential people around content marketing, you see Michael Brenner there, we say Junte, and we see Mark, and we see myself. And part of my journey in the influencer marketing space is being called by other people an influencer in different ways. So the interesting thing is that I get to play both sides of the coin, and there's a lot of insight from that. So smartly, Jason identified both Michael and myself as people to contribute to this ebook, and as you see those tiny little screenshots, both Michael and I did. But what also happened was that both Michael and I created content on our own blogs about this content asset, and that's what you would hope for, influencers that are included in co-creating something to also take it a step further. LinkedIn did not ask us to do these things. This is just how both Michael and I operate. We see something awesome, we want to talk about it. And so Michael published a blog post on his insanely popular, and it's brand new, Marketing Insider Group blog, and I published something on Top Rank blog as well, which, as you can see, is when I took this screenshot, it had just under 2,000 shares. There's been well over 2,000 shares already, and not only that, it's inspired content on other people's websites as well. So that's one of the reasons why you would include popular influencers that have evidence of affecting action, and in this case, something that we wrote on our blog affected action. It affected other people to create second and third level content. But at the same time, the legitimacy, the realness of including people that work at their company, internal subject matter experts in that very same content, makes this a winner, right? It's not just the popular, it's not just the internal subject matter experts, it's a combination of both. Secret number 2, reach is not your only goal with influencer marketing. When you look at a lot of the influencer work that content marketers or even SEOs are doing, they're just including famous people in their content in the hopes that they'll promote it, like I just shared with you, and that's it. That's all they're thinking about. And the thing is that your goal for including influencers in your B2B content programs needs to be a little more sophisticated, or at least if you're not, you're leaving a lot of money on the table. You're leaving a lot of audience and community and value on the table when you don't think about the value of making your content more authentic by including, quote, real people, right? Internal subject matter experts, external subject matter experts from your community in your marketing content. It increases quality because you can often tap into expertise that doesn't exist within your copywriting staff. You can create a greater variety of content because we're including other voices that aren't part of your marketing team. You can also create engagement opportunities. So maybe people in your marketing department don't typically work with internal subject matter experts or subject matter experts in your industry. The invitation to co-create content together actually is a networking exercise, both internally and with people in the industry. And trust me, this is an amazing thing when you do this with prospects in your industry, right? If you think about it, if you identify, look at your prospect list, if you look at those people that are in a position to blog, if they are active on the social web, why not reach out to them and co-create content together? By creating that experience, it helps them understand who you are, and it's done in a comfortable way. And oftentimes that'll attract an engagement for you. By another goal, of course, is scale, because when you're working with your community and you're literally approaching this from a crowdsourcing standpoint with internal, external industry influencers, you're distributing the content creation function outside of your own marketing department. And this is something that does require some pretty savvy project management, but when you are able to distribute the content creation function amongst others, and you are able to train that group of folks on what it is that you want, and you give them feedback on what represents excellence, people are very, very motivated, and that can become a big content machine for what at your company might be a solo marketing person or a very small 2 or 3 or 5 person marketing group. Secret number 3, influencers are for more than just marketing. Right? We create content for more reasons than just customer acquisition. So why shouldn't we incorporate influencers for more reasons than that? So of course, the benefits of incorporating influencers with content and marketing is that we can create more content, better quality, increase our credibility. They'll advocate for us. They might even promote. Great. But what about PR, right? PR often incorporates influencers in what they're doing in terms of sourcing experts for brand content, sourcing subject matter experts for media relations activities where we've earned media coverage in an industry publication, and even for advocacy. Again, a lot of PR-centric initiatives around influencers have been around a long time, and it usually is centered around advocacy. But also, what about recruiting? I mean, you have industry experts that you could work with to give career tips, to give testimonials about how they work their way up, and that can be part of your recruiting efforts as well. You could partner with industry influencers from a customer support standpoint. What I mean by that is, again, redefining our definition of influencer, not just popular people in the industry, but people that are in your own community. So who's raising their hand in your community in terms of being an advocate, in terms of being helpful? Work with them to create FAQs, to work on creating resources that could support your customer support function. And also customer social responsibility initiatives. Find industry influencers who have similar values, who have similar initiatives as it relates to social responsibility, and partner with them on content projects, right? So if you think about it, influence isn't limited to marketing. So why should your work with influencers be limited to marketing? Secret number 4. Influencer and for the win. So this is thinking strategically about the function of incorporating industry influencers as well as internal subject matter experts into our content architecture for an entire year from a campaign perspective, and thinking about, okay, not only are we creating content specific to the different customer segments and according to the stage in the buying process, answering their questions as they move from awareness to consideration to purchase, but to what degree can we work with industry influencers to answer those questions, right? The brand answering question is a move in the right direction, but getting a credible third party to help answer those questions is even better. At the document level, you can create templates that call for influencer inputs at different points, right? And this is a modular approach to content, where we're architecting content plans, content programs that identify influencer interaction or involvement opportunities, and integrating that across channels, integrating that across content assets, and in this case, doing so at the document level. So there's a great campaign we did for Content Marketing Institute that was just this, right? So it was multimedia, multi-channel, and multi-influencer, where we created a sequence of different assets, everything from ebooks to blog posts to infographics, social content, spread out through an entire month, multiple influencers. It was a big win and very integrated. So even though the content assets carried a slightly different aesthetic, there was continuity in the message, there was continuity even in the aesthetic and in the messages that influencers were using to promote the thing that they were a part of. And I have to say, quality travels, right? If you co-create something awesome, that in of itself is the best marketing investment you could make, and it will inspire a lot of amplification, a lot of sharing. IBM e-commerce, or IBM Commerce has a great community, the new way to engage hashtag of futurists, influencers that they are working with to co-create content, everything from ebooks to videos, infographics, blogs, and there's also a community where these folks can connect with each other as well as people in the broader IBM e-commerce community. So another great example of integration. Secret number 5. This is one of the most important parts of the influencer content framework, and that is relationships. Relationships rule. Because if you work with an influencer on a campaign, they're your friend for the campaign. But if you help someone become even more influential, if you have that as part of your objectives, not just to what your brand can achieve by working with someone famous or influential, but how can you create value for them, then of course that is an investment that's going to pay dividends. That's an investment in helping someone else that's not only going to help make them or contribute to their own increased influence because of your brand visibility and popularity, but it's going to come back to you as well. And like I said, a brand individual is popular, but an influencer creates popularity. And as you as a brand that aspires to be more influential can help others become influential as well, that's going to strengthen your credibility. It's going to strengthen your position as the dominant influencer in your category. And this is something that I spend a lot of my time doing. And I know it looks like I'm just going around taking selfies with famous people in the marketing industry, but it really is a manifestation of relationships that I've been able to build over time. And I don't know if you can spot the CMO in this mix, or if you can spot the senior vice president of a $138 billion company that happens to be one of our clients, but that's the evidence. And of course, we see Pierre there, who's the CEO of Tracker, right in the center too. So relationships rule. It's not about the campaign. It's about a persistent, always-on effort in maintaining relationships. And so you've got to find ways to do that. You've got to find ways that don't require a substantial amount of resources to maintain relationships with these influencers, because guess what? Your competition wants relationships with those influencers too. And there's only so many of them to go around. So now that we're done with those secrets, I hope that's giving you some things to think about and reframing a little bit about what you're looking at in terms of influencer marketing. But I also want to leave you with some best and worst practices. And this is all from firsthand experience. So things you should do, absolutely. Start with value. Give to get is one of the best strategies you can have with social, one of the best approaches you can have with influencer marketing. So romance for the win. You've got to romance your way. If you have no relationship with an influencer, if they're a niche influencer, if they're not a brand individual, you've got to work your way up into it. So you follow them, you retweet them, you comment on their blog posts, you comment on their articles they write for industry publications. You sit in the front row when they're giving a presentation at a conference, and you live blog their presentation. Trust me, that's a great way to fast track that relationship. Please do personalize your asks, make them relevant. You know, for someone to come to me and want me to contribute a comment about mobile marketing to B2C industry has not been following all the B2B content stuff that I've been talking about for the last 5 years. That's not a bad thing, it's just not irrelevant. So make sure your asks are relevant, make sure they are personalized. Nothing's worse than getting an email and it says insert name here, right? Delete. It's the only option, delete. So make it easy for them. Pre-write shares. Make it easy for them to contribute. Don't go to someone and say, hey, can you answer these 10 questions? I do expect War and Peace, and by the way, I expect it tomorrow. Delete is the only option when that happens. So ask them one simple question, and then if you get answers to one question asked from 10 people, you can aggregate those 10 answers together and you have something awesome. And for the people who gave you something really, really good, you can follow up with them and say, hey, I really like what you had to say. Would you mind if I asked you a couple of follow-up questions? And we can get deeper into that co-creation relationship. Showcase the wins. Everyone loves a winner. So as you've launched a campaign or a co-created asset with influencers, go back to them and let them know how awesome things are going. Give them metrics and share with them how close you are to reaching your goal. And they may do some extra push for you. Follow up. Follow up with them through feedback. If someone invests in their time and effort to help you co-create and promote something, most often brands that do this do not ever follow up with the influencer and let them know how the campaign did. They just don't, and that's a massive fail. So please do follow through. Let them know how they did. Let them know, give them constructive feedback. Let them know what your preferences are, but also let them know how their contribution added up to the overall success of the program. So those are things you should do. Don't make big asks on the first contact, which I kind of touched on. Don't assume that they're going to do 10 things when you've only implied that you want them to do one thing. Don't over-edit their contributions. That's not a win. That's just going to alienate them. If you respect their opinion, if you respect their point of view and creativity, then use that. Don't edit it. Don't bait and switch. And I see this with SEOs all the time. You give a contribution to a contributed article, a guest blog post or something as an influencer, and then they go ahead and add anchor text links to all the keywords they want to rank for to your content, or have them show up for an event and say that you want them to moderate a panel, and then say, oh, by the way, we'd like you to moderate all the panels for an entire track. That's all bait and switch. Don't do that. You're going to alienate them. And don't forget to say thank you. If you have an influencer work with you on something, and I can't tell you how often, how common this is, there's no thank you. Thank you for doing this, and here's why. That can go a long way. Simple courtesy. So if you want your content to be great, hey, why not? Ask influencers to participate. And I'll go ahead and pause while you retweet this right now. Make sure you use the hashtag
Uber webinar, Uber webinar.
Uber webinar, yes. Uber webinar. Okay, some tools. I've got a big old list of tools here. What do you use an influencer marketing tool for? Because it's more important why you use the tool than the tool itself, in my opinion. Obviously to identify, to qualify and recruit, but also to manage the relationship, to engage them on an ongoing basis. I'm thinking business, apparently. But you also want to use that influencer platform, or it should be able to help you measure, right? What's the share of voice? What's the engagement? What is the performance, our influencer marketing initiative? And of course, you can use those data insights to optimize your relationships, optimize the performance of your influencer content campaign. So, of course, I'm at Tracker, so I would be remiss not to mention Tracker, which I personally think is one of the most sophisticated and impactful influencer tools, but there's lots of others. So I also use BuzzSumo on a daily basis. I also use LinkedIn on a daily basis. I use FollowerWonk a little bit, Keyhole a little bit, and there you go. So, all right, some takeaways. Identify some kind of platform because this does require efficiency and effectiveness, and it's going to be really hard to do that with spreadsheets and Google Docs. So find an influencer platform that can facilitate your ability to find relevant people and to manage their relationships on an ongoing basis, and also measure the effect of what your programs are doing. And I would highly recommend that you organize influencer co-created content using a modular approach. And you can Google the expression modular content. We've written about it a lot on Top Rank blog, but it makes personalization and customization by vertical a lot easier. And it also makes repurposing influencer content a lot more effective as well. And if you want to, see a much better return on your content co-creation investment, then you've got to optimize, you've got to socialize, you've got to publicize and activate it with influencer involvement. I can't imagine not doing those things, but a lot of folks just invest in content creation and wish for the best, throw a little bit of ad money at it, and there you go. I think the best investment in content promotion you can make is being thoughtful about keywords that are in demand, being thoughtful about social conversations that are active, and activating relevant influencers in inviting them to co-create that very content you'll use to sell to the, or use to promote to the community afterwards. So there you go. Here's a resource we put together for you. It is download. It is how to incorporate influencers to skyrocket your B2B content marketing success. So it's a little more in-depth look on some of the things that I was talking about today. So please feel free to take a look at that URL, and feel free to share it out on Twitter or the social web. And I think we have time for some questions.
Fantastic. Lee, that was awesome. Everybody go download the ebook. I bet you half my team is doing that right now. Cool. So yeah, we had a bunch of great questions roll in. I think, and I'll take back
Okay.
control here in a second, Lee. But I think as I do that, would love for you to dig into one of the questions that sort of kept coming up. And I think you touched on it when you started to talk about the tools. But one of the biggest things people were asking were, how do you identify influencers? And I know some of those tools will help,
Yeah.
but also you talk about finding evidence of persuasion. What does that mean? What metrics are you really looking at? Is it more qualitative or quantitative? Can you dig into that a little bit?
Absolutely. So in terms of, this is one of the most common issues, some of the research, the nascent research on influencer marketing has revealed, is that people are most challenged by finding and engaging with influencers. So certainly you're right, the tools are very helpful. You can literally go to Follower Wonk, and if you just want to find people that have self-identified as being an expert on one thing or another, you could easily use Follower Wonk to search Twitter bios for that, or you could go to BuzzSumo and you can start typing in keywords and finding content that's most often shared socially, and you can find out who the authors are of that content. And you can look at metrics like not just shares, but also link attraction. You know, great content will often attract links from other sources.
Mm-hmm.
You can look at the authority of who's sharing that person or that author's content. So you can also do, you can ask people at your company, you can ask public relations and marketing people, product marketing people, even customer service and sales, like who's influential in our industry. You can go manually inspect conference speaker rosters and that sort of thing, and use the personal interactions amongst your employees to come up with the seed list, and you can bring those into a tool like Tracker, and you can use you can use influencer platforms like a search engine to surface your raw list of influencers. And then when you use a tool, some of the more sophisticated tools will have filtering mechanisms like reach and relevance that will identify the degree to which, obviously, if they're on, like use a keyword. So, are they relevant for the CRM software, right? Are they relevant in some way with CRM software? Then, to what degree is their community interacting and reacting to what they say, right? Are they resonating with their community? So those are some of the metrics, and they have different labels depending on what influencer platform you're working with.
Mm-hmm.
But you want to see to what degree is the influencer creating content, and to what degree is their community interacting and acting as a result of that content, right?
Mm.
And that's how you identify, and you can narrow down then, based on those metrics, your short list of influencers. And then I like to correlate across tools. So I'll use 2 or 3 different tools as influencer search engines. I'll export those to a CSV file, and I'll look for correlations. Do the same people keep showing up depending on different tools? And then I'll come up with a short list. And then you have to manually inspect how they are publishing on the web to actually validate that they are indeed active as a publisher, active as an engager in their market, and then start to formulate your recruitment strategy or your recruitment efforts to work with them.
Yeah. So it's funny, we're getting a lot of good questions roll in here. So Amanda says that, she markets a pretty cut and dry product. It's around legal services. She says, I can't imagine inspiring 2 or 3 levels of content after, releasing something. She wants to know if you have any suggestions for generating sort of excitement with subject matter experts in that type of an industry.
Sure. Well, it may not be exciting to other people that aren't in that industry, but there are things about it that are exciting to people who are in that industry.
Hmm.
So I guess one of the fun things that you get to do with influencers is to be creative and use metaphors as a way to get them excited. So while we might have, and I know she didn't say the word boring industry, but sometimes I get this kind of question, like how can I make a boring industry or something that's very cut and dry exciting?
Right.
Use metaphors, use hooks. So as an example, one of the campaigns that I shared, it used an Alice in Wonderland as the hook or metaphor. So it was content marketing in Wonderland, Alice in Wonderland, right? And there were all kinds of plays, puns, and that sort of thing that we're able to use to make it interesting. So a metaphor is wonderful for helping people understand one thing in terms of another. And if the thing is boring, then the other, well, you want it to be a metaphor that's exciting and interesting, right? So that's what I would do, is I would find some sort of metaphor that's analogous to what it is that you're actually selling and try to use that as a hook to be fun, to be creative or clever when reaching out to people who are authoritative in your industry to see if they'd like to play that game with you and co-create something together.
Yeah, I think that's actually really good advice. I like the idea of getting a more fun sort of
I'm glad you
analogy.
agree.
Yeah, no, I do. So I have a question actually, and then I'll get to everybody else's in a second. So how, I mean, so influencers and industry experts is one thing, and I'm sure you've kind of encountered this at some point where you reach out to an influencer and the response is, "Yeah, great, I'd love to help. Here's the price tag." Right? So like, here's how much it is. Here's maybe they charge for whatever it might be, and I know a lot of marketers don't necessarily have like massive budgets to do that kind of thing. Any idea of like how you can sort of deal with that, or what you should be looking at if you don't have major budget to throw at
Yeah.
it?
So this could be a sixth secret, and that is you don't need to pay
Yeah.
um, to get influencers involved. However, you need to create value. So find out, especially in the B2B space, there's a lot of B2B influencers that you can work with, but you've got to find out what value you can create for them that they're not getting elsewhere or that they desire more of. So
Hmm.
when it's a brand individual, when you have a kind of a pro influencer, this is someone who's writing books, they're speaking at a lot of conferences, they're blogging, they're very active in the social web. And by the way, just because someone's a brand individual doesn't mean they are not also influential. It's just that there are a certain number of brand individuals that are just really good at being popular, but not necessarily at being influential. And that's an important distinction to make. But if it's a brand individual, they're always up for a good game. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So you can say, hey, we're doing this thing. It's really exciting. And of course, if you've invested in a really clever metaphor, a clever concept, and you paint the picture of how unique it is, and also at the same time super relevant to what they stand for, that in combination with making participation easy is will lubricate their way into participation without compensation per se. But if the more you expect from someone, the more you should expect to compensate them in some way.
Hmm.
Compensation can come in the form of budget. Compensation can come in the form of attending an event, and so you pay their travel. You pay for they don't have to pay for a conference ticket, but they're there to create content. And
Right.
give them access. This is a standard kind of thing to do. Give them access to people that'll help them create content. So if you understand an influencer is in the business of creating content, and if you can give them access to creating very unique content that will help them in unique ways, that can be the value, right? So I guess the short version of the answer is that two things. One, find value that you can create for them that they desire, that doesn't require budget per se, or at least come up with a token budget. Like, it goes a long ways to say, look, I know I know you're a big deal, and I know you get paid to speak and this and that, and that, but I've got this really cool thing, and I know that you like this because I see evidence of this. I know that you're really interested in pursuing this area, and this is something we could work together on. Well, I'd love to pay you a gazillion dollars. I can give you a token payment of X. right?
Yeah.
Something that's proportionate to your small budget. And I tell you what, someone who's normally paid $20,000 to give a keynote will take 500 bucks to do a small thing if you're humble about how you approach it, and there is true promise in the thing that you work with together. The second thing is that if you do the free thing and you're good at creating value with influencers over time, eventually you are going to have to pay them. Eventually that relationship is going to have to be consummated in a form of payment some way or somehow, because they can't do it for free forever.
Yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense. So when you're looking at actually working with these influencers, and there's been some variations of this question sort of come up, so I'm going to kind of combine it all into one. You spoke a little bit about sort of the do's and don'ts of reaching out, but can you talk a little bit about sort of advice for streamlining the creation process with the influencers? One really great example I can think of is, not that I consider myself an influencer by any means, but I remember Ashley from your
Of course you
team
are.
wanted to do like a little interview for your blog, and she made it so easy. She was like, if you want to just send me the answers by audio, you can do that, and that was so much easier than me having to sit down and write responses.
Absolutely.
So little things like that. Do you have any tips that will sort of help people with that?
Well, if you do your homework and you ask questions that show that you've done your homework, they're going to respect the questions more and will be more likely to answer them. And so I know that may not seem like an efficiency task, or a task that will result in efficiency, but believe me, it does.
Yeah.
The other thing is what you just said. Of course, make it easy for them to contribute. So the audio, phone call, or just say, hey, just do speech to text. We'll go ahead and clean it up. Or just give me your run. If you have just a train of consciousness, or stream of consciousness, a train of thought, and just throw it in, and we'll go ahead and make it pretty, and we'll make it look good. I think it was, at Steve Garfield. We had asked him for something. He just gave this big dump of information, and we went and formatted. We had bold titles, we had bullet points that, he didn't write any of that, but we reformatted it in such a way, and we sent it back to him. He's like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
So if you're going to collect inputs from influencers, of course you want to make it easy for them to contribute, but you've also got to make them look good. And when you create an experience like that, it's actually going to motivate them to do some of the hard work if that's called for the next time, So I think asking simple questions and then following up, as I said in the earlier, you get an answer to one question, then follow up and say, I'd like to drill a little deeper on that if you're interested. And here's why. I thought what you said was really cool, and here's why. I'd like to ask you a couple of follow-up questions. Is that cool? The other thing is, another trick, of course, is real live experiences or recorded. So, for example, if I was giving this presentation at a conference, someone live blogging my presentation, it makes it really easy for me to contribute because I'm talking to 500 people, and at the same time, someone is collecting my input by live blogging. But you don't have to just do it live. You can do that from a recorded presentation. Like, I would highly recommend people listening to this later on to go ahead and blog it, right? Yeah. If they want me, if I'm on their influencer list, they really should blog what we're talking about, make it into a blog post, or there's enough material here to do multiple blog posts. It would be really easy for them to do that, and they can do it on their own time. And of course, that's going to get them on my radar. And I almost always promote stuff like that. So those are a couple of tips.
Yeah, I think those are great tips. I'm going to take one more question here because we are getting close to time. Before I do that, a couple of you have asked for that link to Lee's ebook. I threw it in the chat so you can click and download right away. And then last question is from Rachel, and this is a little bit of a different twist on it. So she says, for a young professional, do you have any tips on becoming an influencer and increasing your personal brand footprint within an industry?
Absolutely. You need to, the first thing I would start with is, what is it that you stand for? How do you want to be known? What is that specific thing? Of course, you could be known for lots of things, but what's the first thing? What's the most important thing you want to be known for? Document that. Even make yourself a mission statement around what that means for your career and to you personally, and start curating content, start sharing content, maybe even blog around that. But at the same time, find out who is already influential about that thing and network your way into their sphere of influence, network your way into their radar. And one of the easiest ways to create a meaningful exchange is to ask them questions. And maybe that turns into an interview. And if you start to curate resources around the topic you want to be known for, in combination with connecting with influencers and doing interviews or interacting with them in some way, is by association going to make you more influential on that very thing.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. Lee, I'm going to let you go because we're getting close to 3 o'clock and you are a busy guy. If anybody else does have any additional questions, Lee's super responsive on Twitter, so tweet him. And again, make sure you download that ebook, because I think a lot of the stuff that he talked about today, you guys get into a little bit more detail about in the ebook, right?
Yep.
Fantastic. So Lee, thanks so much for joining us. It was great having you here today.
Thank you, Hannah. It was great to be here.
Fantastic. And for everybody else that's still with us, sit tight. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a couple of minutes and actually show you guys how Uberflip works, and how you can leverage it for content marketing and even potentially for your influencer marketing. So bear with me for a second here while I share my screen. Fantastic. So it looks like we've got my screen sharing with everybody. Now, just to give you guys a high level of sort of what Uberflip does and how we do it, essentially what we're focused on is really creating a remarkable content experience. So create, manage, and optimize your content across every single stage of the buyer journey. Now, what does that really mean? Well, it means that, with Uberflip, you can do things like power the resource center on your website. You can create really tailored content experiences for your sales team, for custom campaigns, for your blog, or to create a content library. And the advantage of using Uberflip for something like this is really around the control that a marketer has to manage this experience, optimize this experience, organize it, and really get the most bang for your buck when it comes to content. So how it works? Well, first thing that you do is you aggregate all of your content from blogs, social media, ebooks, white papers, video content, all into Uberflip. And once you've got it there, that's sort of where the magic happens. That's when you can start to create different content experiences with different content mixes that are really tailored to your audience. So for example, I can create a stream of content for buyer persona 1, and I can create another stream of content for buyer persona 2. Or you can create streams of content for specific verticals or around specific topics. It can be used as the resource center on your website, or it can sit independently as a content library. So lots of different uses that you can really implement Uberflip for. And then of course, within the platform, we give you the tools you need to meet your goals and to optimize your content experience. So you can generate leads by using nested forms or gating content within your content hub. And it's much quicker and much simpler than having to create a landing page, for example, every single time. And then of course, we give you the tools you need to measure performance. How is your content working? How are those forms converting? How are those calls to action converting? Is it impacting your bottom line? All of that stuff you can start to look at within Uberflip. Now, let me show you how we actually use Uberflip. So I'm going to show you Uberflip using Uberflip. This is an example of our own content hub. And as you scroll down, you can see here we've got the latest feed of our content. And it's a great content mix because we've aggregated all of our blog posts, all of our ebooks, all of our white papers into this one platform where we can really kind of mix it up according to how we want to present our content. So you'll see we've got an ebook here about content discoverability. We've got a social media. This is actually pulling from Instagram. We've got blog posts. We've got slides coming in from SlideShare. All sorts of different types of content. So it's a really rich visual experience. Now, as I scroll through, you'll see that it's not just the content, but it's also these forms and calls to action. So throughout Uberflip, you can actually sprinkle these calls to action and really start to get a great lift off of people subscribing or registering or filling out a lead capture. Now, this is the latest feed of content. So this is just what's been published recently. But if you take a look up here, you'll see that our marketing team has actually organized our content in a couple of different ways in order to make it really relevant and discoverable for our audience. So our resources, for example, are structured by content type. So we've got our webinars, we've got slide shares, we've got infographics, we've got ebooks. Now, this is okay. And what I see is a lot of B2B companies structure their resource center this way. And this is all they do. So they'll put all of their webinars, all of their white papers, all of their ebooks in sort of one spot. The struggle with that is I don't think I've ever gone to a resource center and said, I want to download all the white papers. I don't care what it's about, but it's got to be a white paper. So you have to give people a different way of discovering your content. You have to actually make it discoverable, maybe by topic, which is what we've done here, by audience segment. So we've organized our content here in a way that actually makes sense for a lot of our user base. Uberflip integrates with marketing automation, so a lot of our users will use HubSpot or Marketo or Eloqua or Pardot or one of those types of marketing automation tools. So let's say I drill down into that stream of content. Now you'll see this is actually much more tailored towards that Marketo user. As I scroll down, I've still got a really rich experience that includes blog posts and videos and slide shares and different types of content, but it's all relevant to that user. Now, not only is the content targeted, but the call to action is much more targeted. So if you remember when we were in the latest feed of content, that was very generic. It just kind of said, hey, do you want to check out Uberflip? Now I can actually say, hey, check out Uberflip and Marketo together. And we all know as marketers, the more targeted your CTA, the better it's going to convert for you in general. So really great use here of kind of reorganizing and tailoring those streams. And then of course, beyond that, you can also use those calls to action to do things like gate content. So this is actually a little hub of all of our webinars. And you'll notice when I click on one of these webinars, I can actually use this to gate. Oh, just clicked on the wrong one. Let's try that one more time. I can actually use Uberflip to gate a recording. I can also use it to gate a white paper or an ebook. So if I look here, I can just fill out this little form and I'm in right away. And the beauty of using Uberflip to do this instead of sort of a traditional landing page is that the content is right there. You just fill out that little form and you're in right away. And we've had customers test this in comparison to a traditional landing page, and they actually saw up to a 250% increase in conversion. So definitely a good tool to have in your arsenal so you can start to optimize things a little bit more. So as we look through our content hub, you can see we've included all sorts of different types of content, podcast content. We've even included a little event section that we've created for our upcoming webinars and also for our upcoming events that we're attending. And of course, we want to make sure that Uberflip is not only a great experience for the people consuming your content, but we want to make sure it's a great experience for you. So when we take a look at Uberflip's backend, you can see here that we want to make it as easy as possible for you to manage your calls to action, manage your content, change the appearance of your hub, and manage all of the integrations like the marketing automation tools and social media integrations. So when you go into Uberflip as a marketer, it's easy for you to actually manage all of your content. If you want to add new content, it's just a matter of clicking a button. So you can add social media content, video content with any of our video hosting partners, blog content, really from any blog. So you can curate content via an RSS feed. You can even make a Twitter list of your influencers and pull that content into your hub. So really a lot of possibilities here in terms of the type of content that you pull into your Uberflip hub and then spinning it up into different experiences to present it. If you were to create a call to action, again, really simple and really easy. You click create call to action, you decide, hey, do I want this to be a button? Do I want this to be a form? And we take you through 3 or 4 steps to customize the message, the color, the button copy. You can even do a little CSS and put an image behind here if you want to, and you're done. Most of the time, for most marketers, this is a 6-week process with a developer to do this kind of form on a website. So really, taking a look at the appearance, Uberflip can be branded to your hub. Again, I'm showing you Uberflip using Uberflip, so it's very Uberflip branded, but you can really be as simple or as fancy as you want in terms of how you actually customize the appearance of your hub. So you can keep it simple and just customize colors and logos, or you can get super crazy and actually use a little custom CSS in order to do it. So one really great example is actually one of our customers, Proofpoint. This is actually powered by Uberflip, but you can see the look and feel is very, very different than what you saw when you were looking at our hub. So lots of flexibility here in terms of how you actually customize it. Now, hopefully that gave you guys a good overview of Uberflip. What I would love for you to do too is keep an eye out on your inbox, not only for the recording, but we also have another great webinar next week with the fine folks from KISS Metrics. But we're not talking about metrics. We're actually talking about webinars because they have been doing them longer than anybody I can think of in the way that they're doing them now. And they have a stellar process. So they're going to come talk to us about how to effectively execute a webinar strategy and optimize a webinar strategy when it comes to B2B marketing and meeting your marketing goals. Until then, guys, thanks again for joining us today. Hopefully I'll see you at the webinar next week, and have a wonderful day.